All right, diving into the world of economic policy officers today. For those of you out there thinking about this career path,
Yeah, awesome.
it is awesome, right?
I mean,
We're talking big impact stuff like shaping economic strategies, influencing policies, and really getting into those complex issues that, we all face.
yeah, totally. It's about understanding the why behind the numbers, not just crunching them.
Exactly, exactly. So you guys ready to prep for these interviews?
Let's do it.
Okay, we've got the career guide, the interview guide, and we'll even touch on how RoleCatcher can help with their AI. Let's jump right in with the classic question. I'm sure you've seen this a million times. What motivated you to pursue this career?
Uh, it's so tempting to just give the generic, I love economics answer,
Right.
but you got to showcase that genuine passion, What really sparked your interest? Was it something you read, an event, a mentor? Think about the impact you want to make. The career guide even talks about all the different paths you can take, government, NGOs, international organizations.
It's true. It's not just one set path. I love the example they give in the guide. Imagine saying something like, growing up, my rural community got hit hard when the factories closed. I saw how economic policies really affect people's lives, and it made me want to understand how to build more resilient economies, make things fairer.
That's powerful. It's personal.
Yeah, it's not just textbook stuff anymore, right?
Right. It shows you can connect those personal experiences to those big economic trends. Which kind of leads us to another question you'll definitely get. What are the key policy issues facing us today?
And here's where you got to go beyond just repeating headlines, right?
Really?
The industry trends section of the career guide is like pure gold. Talk about international trade wars, automation, climate change. I mean,
The big stuff.
yeah, the big stuff, the things economic policy officers actually work on.
And don't just list the issues, think about potential solutions. Like with automation, you could mention the need for policies around retraining workers, things like that. Or with climate change, maybe bring up carbon taxes.
That's showing you're thinking ahead. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI comes in handy, too. You can actually input a job description and practice your answer, and their AI analyzes it, gives feedback.
Wow.
Yeah, like it might point out skills or keywords that the employer wants to hear, making sure you hit all the right points, almost like your own personal coach.
I like that. Okay, so another one they always ask is, how do you stay up to date on everything?
Ooh, that's a good one. Imagine I'm the interviewer, and I'm like, really? Prove it.
Uh-huh.
Do you actually follow this stuff?
Don't just say, oh, I read The Economist, Go deeper. The career guide has that external resources section. Look at those organizations they list. National Bureau of Economic Research, Peterson Institute. Mentioning those shows, you're actively seeking out different views.
That's smart. And maybe even talk about how you analyze those different viewpoints. Like, I read this study recently, and it really got me thinking about, sure, you're not just passively reading, you're engaging with it.
Yeah, showing that critical thinking, which honestly is key for those tougher questions, the ones that really make you think.
Ooh, yeah. The ones that are less about a right answer and more about showing how you approach complex situations. We should definitely unpack those.
For sure. Those are the ones that really set you apart in an interview. Okay,
Yeah.
so those tougher questions, the ones that really dig into how do you actually make policy decisions?
Right, because it's not always clear cut, is it?
No way. One that always comes up is how do you balance those competing interests when you're developing economic policies?
Yeah, because almost every decision helps someone and hurts someone else. It's tricky.
It is. Even the career guide touches on that. Like in those senior level roles, they talk a lot about building consensus, taking different perspectives into account.
Makes sense.
Think about it like, imagine you're on a city council, right? And there's this big development project. It could bring lots of jobs, but what about the environmental impact?
Yeah, that's a classic example. How do you weigh those things against each other?
Exactly. And there's no magic answer. The key is showing you understand it's complicated. You'd need to gather data on job growth, analyze the environmental reports, maybe even talk to people in the community and get their input.
Right, so you're demonstrating a process more than a solution.
Exactly. You're showing you think things through, you consider both the economic side and the social impact. Which, by the way, brings up another common one. How do you measure if a policy is actually successful?
Ooh, metrics. That's where I start to get a little lost. Like, is it just GDP? Or what about inflation, unemployment?
It's more than just those standard metrics, for sure. The interview guide talks about going deeper. Think about the goal of that specific policy. Are you trying to reduce poverty, boost innovation, improve access to healthcare?
So the metrics should match the goal.
Right. If it's about affordable housing, maybe you look at how many new units get built or the percentage of people spending less than 30% of their income on housing.
That makes a lot more sense than just like throwing out GDP numbers.
It shows you understand how to actually track progress. And don't forget data. You got to show you're comfortable analyzing it, using it to see if things are working or if you need to make adjustments.
Data, data, data.
Always. And you know what? RoleCatcher can actually help with this. If you know the specific role you're going for, like, say, a policy analyst for a housing organization, plug that into RoleCatcher, and the AI can actually suggest metrics that are specific to that field.
Wow, so it's like a shortcut to figuring out, okay, what are they actually looking for me to measure?
Exactly. It's making sure your answer is tailored to that exact job. Okay, ready for another one? This one's a bit sensitive. How do you make sure economic policies are equitable and inclusive?
Ooh, yeah, you got to be careful with this one. The wording, everything.
Definitely. The guy talks about distributional effects, which basically means who wins and who loses when you make a change.
Right, because some policies can really impact certain groups more than others, like low-income communities or minorities.
Exactly. So you could talk about things like, if there's a policy to encourage green energy, but what about the people working in fossil fuels who might lose jobs? How do we support them?
Right, so you're thinking about those unintended consequences and what you can do to minimize them.
Yeah. And maybe talk about getting different groups involved in the decision-making process from the beginning.
So that everyone has a voice at the table.
Exactly. It's not just about the numbers, it's about people. Okay, one more big one. How do you balance those short-term needs with the long-term economic goals?
That's always the struggle, isn't it? Do we fix what's broken now or invest in the future?
Right, but the interview guide is all about sustainability.
So we're not just trying to juice the economy for a quick win. We're making sure it's strong for years to come.
Exactly. Like, think about policies that promote growth but also tackle climate change or income inequality at the same time.
Okay, so like finding that sweet spot where we help people now, but we're also setting things up for a better future.
Yes. And think of real-world examples, like a city needs to cut spending, they could slash the public transit budget, save money fast, but then more people drive, traffic gets worse, and folks who depend on buses have a harder time getting to work.
Right, so maybe there's a way to cut in other areas or find more revenue, something that doesn't hurt people in the long run.
It's about those trade-offs. Sometimes there's no perfect answer, but you gotta show you've thought about the costs and the benefits both now and in the future.
I like that. Trade-offs. That's a good way to frame it.
It is. And guess what? RoleCatcher can help here too. It can look at the job description and tell you what kind of trade-offs might be important for that role.
No way. So if it's an environmental policy job, it might tell me to focus on balancing economic growth with protecting the environment.
Exactly. It's like having a guide to help you navigate all those complex decisions.
It really sounds like RoleCatcher takes a lot of the guesswork out of prepping for these interviews.
It does. But even with the best policies, they don't mean much if people don't understand them. Which leads us to another question. How do you explain complicated economic stuff to regular people?
Yeah, because economists are known for their clear and concise communication skills.
Right. The guide really stresses that, though. You got to use simple language, ditch the jargon, make it relatable.
I'm a visual learner, so I always think charts and graphs. But obviously, you can't always do that in an interview.
True. Visuals are great, but think about analogies and real-world examples. Like, instead of quantitative easing, maybe you compare it to a doctor giving someone medicine to help their blood flow.
Oh, I like that. I actually understand quantitative easing now.
See? You took something complex and made it click. Stories work great, too. People remember those more than some theory.
Oh, and RoleCatcher can help here too, right?
Yeah.
It can tell you if your language is too technical.
Yeah. It's like your personal editor, making sure you're speaking plain English. That's a skill you'll need throughout your career.
Well, I gotta say, we've covered a lot. Balancing competing interests, measuring success, equity, those short-term versus long-term goals, even how to talk about this stuff in a way that actually makes sense.
You're sounding ready for that interview.
I think so. It's less daunting now knowing what kinds of questions they might throw at me.
You've got this.
Yeah.
But there's always more to learn, right? There are some great resources out there to help you stay on top of things.
I feel like we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of these interview questions, like how to actually answer them in a way that shows, hey, I know my stuff, and I'm passionate about this.
Absolutely. You've got to show both sides of that coin.
Right. But now I'm thinking, okay, what happens after you nail that interview? What does the actual career path look like?
That's where that career stages section in the guide is super useful. It lays out how the job changes as you move up from entry level all the way to those senior
Oh,
positions.
that's cool. So you can see how economic policy officers gain experience, maybe specialize in certain areas.
Exactly. And how they take on more leadership over time.
So it's not just about getting the job. It's about planning for a whole career.
Get about that long game.
Yeah, like having a roadmap for where you want to go.
And remember that external resources section. Those organizations, the journals, conferences, that's not just for interview prep, that's how you stay sharp throughout your career.
Keeping up with all the changes, the new research.
Yeah, because economics never stands still, right?
That's true. It's always evolving,
So you always got to be learning.
which honestly is kind of exciting. It means there's always something new to discover.
Keeps things interesting. And RoleCatcher can help with that too. They have a career compass feature that can identify skills you might need to develop for future roles, suggest training, even find new job openings that match what you want to do.
So it's like having a personalized career counselor.
Pretty much.
That's amazing. One thing that keeps coming back to me is that idea of adaptability that you mentioned, how important it is in this field.
Oh, it's crucial. The economy doesn't wait for anyone to catch up. New challenges pop up all the time. Technology changes, global dynamics shift. What you need to know today might be different tomorrow.
So it's not enough to just have a set of skills. You have to be ready to learn new things, be curious, roll with the punches.
Exactly. The best economic policy officers, they're always asking questions, challenging their own assumptions.
They're the ones pushing the field forward.
They are. So for anyone out there thinking about this career path, remember, it's about more than just that interview. It's about a lifetime of learning, making a real impact.
Yeah. Use the resources, challenge yourself, and go make a difference. And remember, RoleCatcher is there to help along the way.
Couldn't say it better myself.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive. We'll be back next time with another exciting career to explore. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.